I was introduced to several of the faculty, and the big point was Albers, Joseph Albers, and Elizabeth spoke so highly of him in the time preceding, and I met Professor Albers. They didn't use that term there, the professorship business, that the faculty was willing to relinquish all that title business, and people didn't have to come to class in suits, which was a relief too. I thought, well, there's a wonderful relaxed nature about here. This was an unusual school that had its own lake, which was wonderful, and it was removed from all other habitation. The school was out in the woodsy and fields area all by itself. There were no other houses visible except the ones that were part of the campus. This was one of the earmarks of that school, that the students really did help. Elizabeth, the year that she had been there, helped with as the milk was brought in from the cattle. There was a small herd of cattle which provided the milk for the school. So the school had its own farm, a certain amount of farm area where crops were grown, but it wasn't enough to support the student body. But they did get the milk, and then they did their own cheese making and their own butter making. Very often students would come, and because of the very freedom of the place, and you didn't have to come with your exam all corrected and written out by the end of the week or something like that, because, well, there weren't exams except maybe a few of the teachers in the academic aspect would ask for something written and accounted for by the students. But those in the arts, well, sure, if John Cage wanted us to write a four-measure little composition using 3 tones or something like that, and we would put it together and we would play them, and then he would analyze and talk about what had happened and all that kind of thing. So it was sort of grist for what was going to be dealt with then by a person who had an overview and who could just get that as raw material and handle it and make a profitable kind of thing out of it, even though individually our pieces were worth only a dried leaf, as far as having any particular contribution. Well, there were certainly certain performances, because whoever was doing the thing was already so pointed into what they were doing. There were things that Merce did, soloed. Olson, actually read some of his writings. That was the first place they were heard publicly. I happened to be in on each of those things, so that Merce had been working on a new dance, and he knew I had this little recorder group, which was comprised of Vera and Elizabeth and I don't know whether Paul stayed. I know he practiced sometimes when we were practicing with the recorders, but I don't think he was in that particular trio. And so this was the one where Merce was wearing that old aviator's cap as part of his costume, and then the 2 parts were flapping down there instead of being fastened under the chin. And he had some other sort of tight fitting. And he had been working on the movements on this. When Charles Olson debuted one of his classics that he got to know, he was known as having done this, and he did it for the first time in the dining hall. And what did he have? He wanted some kind of a sound background. So I don't know whose idea it was, but I was going to be the musician, and the instrument turned out to be prepared piano, because I was close to John Cage when he was there, and questioned him quite a good deal about what he used, and what he got out of it then. And so I started fooling around with erasers, rubber erasers and things like that, and putting them in between the strings. And I had a set of things, so I had my little composition, and ding, plong, plong, and it distorts the whole piano aspect of it. And of course, if it was something that had to project, then we would use our miserable slide projector, which was already focused, and it was a matter of slipping in different slides. And one of the things we learned was, if you left the cellophane in the projector, and with that hot bulb in there, it would begin to melt. And it was a production in itself. It was strange. And one of the strangest things is it would begin to leak. When it's projected, it leaks upwards. And that, it took a long time to really accommodate to that. Even when I first started seeing it, I can't believe what I'm seeing. This stuff is leaking upwards as it melts. And so we used to do stuff with that, and make our own slides, and we would project slides on a person or partway on a person, so that there would be a fairly corporal part, or if as much as we could blot it out through lights and absence of lights by having a strong enough light, just let's say on their lower quarter, so it looks like a dancing legs kind of thing. We would strive through our very poor tools to get this to happen. So we did a lot of improvisation in terms of techniques and devices to get our point made. I can't think of the numbers of things, because kids, got to talking, we could do this, and then we could do this, and you get all excited about it. And as I said, a lot of the things turned out to be doable, and some of them weren't. But we would try everything that looked as though it had the possibility of making it.